I would love to speak today on the title, Don't Waste Your Discontent. Don't waste your discontent. And I'm going to read from a little passage in John 6, starting at verse 25. And what's happened is Jesus has fed the 5,000. He's taken the 2 fish and the 5 loaves, and he's fed the 5,000. And then the people eat their fill, and then Jesus moves on and kind of walks across the lake, as you do, and then they find him on the other side of the lake, and then they have this encounter as the crowd finds him. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, "Rabbi, when did you get here?" Jesus answered, "Very truly I tell you, you are looking for me not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him, God the Father has placed his seal of approval." Then they asked him, "What must we do to do the works God requires?" Jesus answered, "The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." So they asked him, "What sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it's written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it's not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it's my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "always give us this bread." Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Don't waste your discontent. One of the key questions of life is, what do you do when you feel a gap between your expectations and reality? When sometimes things just don't turn out the way you hoped, and you feel the disappointment of that. Or sometimes they do turn out the way you hoped, and yet they don't give you all that you thought they might. You still don't feel fully satisfied. It's a very common human experience. You feel, maybe I need something more to be content. Maybe you feel that way today. Of course, it might be that everyone here is perfectly happy. Every single aspect of your life is just as you would wish it to be. All your dreams have come true. All you hope for in life is unfolding just the way you hoped it would do. You've got no worries or fears. Every one of your relationships is in exactly, precisely the right place. The way your boss, your leaders, your friends all think you're amazing. You're nailing life. And there's nothing in the world you long for that you don't already have. And if that's you, I just want to say personally, I'm delighted for you. And I'm sure everyone else is really happy for you too. But it might just be there's a couple of us who are experiencing at this moment a gap. And in this area, a longing for more. And what do we do with that? Well, the first thing we see in this passage is your hunger is a hint. Your hunger is a hint. What's fascinating about this passage is people come to Jesus having seen this amazing miracle when he multiplies the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he feeds over 5,000 people, and there is so much food, everyone can eat until they are full, and they have this amazement, and they think Jesus must be a prophet. They even think he might be the Messiah. And then Jesus kind of steps away from them. He crosses the lake, and they come to find him, and he says, "You're looking for me because you ate the loaves and had your fill. You're looking for me because your stomachs were full and you saw a sign and you wanted more, but you missed the meaning of that sign. Your hunger leads you here, but is all you want more bread? Is all you want to be full like you were yesterday?" And then he says, "Don't work for food that spoils." And they're following their hunger, and their taste of feeling full leads them to Jesus. Your hunger is a hint. And Jesus says, look for bread that endures into eternity. Jesus is using bread here as a very powerful metaphor. I'm the bread of life. The Father gives true bread from heaven. And bread was so important in that culture. You literally couldn't get through the day if you didn't eat bread. It's different now. Some of you exist on kale smoothies and matcha lattes. But bread was absolutely essential to your sustenance and to your nourishment, your fulfillment. It represented your physical needs. It's interesting, Jesus doesn't say, I'm the cake of life, because cake is optional. It's an extra. It's not actually that nice, in my opinion. He said, I'm the bread of life. It's essential. It's your nourishment. It's what you need to live. But it also represented, as well as your physical desires, it represented your emotional needs and desires. Bread signified relational connection. You shared it. You broke it around a table. In one sense, the high point of the day was to break bread, to break the loaf of bread that you would share at a table with your loved ones. It was a powerful indicator of the kind of social hierarchy and social acceptance, your place in the community. To have a seat at someone's table, to break bread with them, demonstrated approval and admiration. And you broke bread with those you loved and those you honored. And in that sense, today, we're all looking for bread. And in one sense, there's more routes to contentment, more routes to fulfillment, and more routes to satisfaction today than there ever have been in the history of the world. There's more opportunities for personal growth. There's more abundance of choice. There's a range of experiences and technology that would make future generations step back in awe and wonder. And yet, for so many of us, while we get tastes of fulfillment and we get some satisfaction, it often seems to elude us. We taste satisfaction and fulfillment and contentment for a day, maybe for a week, maybe for a month, and then it seems to slip through our fingers. And actually, most effective advertising plays on this reality. It plays on our sense of longing. Your phone, I hope you realize this, listens to your conversations all the time. And it's trying to build through the algorithm a map of what your desires and needs and hopes and longings are, whether they're articulated or unarticulated. It's building a grid of you and a grid of maybe what you don't even realize about yourself. So then it can target you with products and lifestyles and promises to meet your desires, to cure your discontent, to give you satisfaction. But those products and promises and lifestyles don't actually deliver. Alain de Botton said, adverts excite within us reminders of a buried longing, but they withdraw from doing anything wholehearted about quenching those longings. And that's without even talking about dating apps, which are designed to keep you in the dating pool for as long as possible. They're architectured in order that you don't always meet the love in your life. One dating app says it's designed to be deleted, but I'm not sure that's the case. And it's not just adverts, we do it to ourselves. When I started working as a barrister, I had this year-long job interview. There were 9 of us vying for one place. And if you got to the end of the year and they gave you a position, then the reward was that your name was put on the door, outside the door of the chambers, outside the door of the law office. Here's an example of what that looks like. Just a list of names going down by the side of the door. And there you are, and just outside the door. And so every day for a year, you would walk past this list of names, and you'd think, one day, God, please, one day, would my name be put on that list? Would I be a member of the chambers? And to my amazement, thanks so much, after a year of kind of working and testing this kind of year-long job interview, they phoned me at the end of that year and they said, Stephen, we've got good news. We'd like to offer you a position. And so I was thinking, that's it. My name's on the list. I've made it. I just thought, this is all I'd hoped for. I couldn't believe it. All my dreams had come true. And so I don't know how you find it. You want to share good news with people. So first I phoned my mum. So I was like, hi, Mum. I've got great news. I've got a position at the law firm. And I'm going to be working as a criminal barrister. And she said, are you going to be representing criminals? And I said, well, no, I'm going to be defending people accused of crimes. It's a little bit different. And she said, but some of them might be criminals. And I said, yeah, I can't exclude the possibility that some of the people who are charged by the police with offenses might have actually committed that offense. Obviously, that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to try and prove that they're not guilty, and it's for the court to decide. And she said, so some of the people you're representing could be criminals. I said, yeah. She said, I'm not happy about that. And then that was the end of that call. So my contentment dropped a little bit. I thought, I'll phone my little brother, Paul. So I phoned my little brother, Paul. I said, Paul, it's great. I've got the job. He said, how much money are you going to get paid? And I was like, well, it's a little bit complicated. I don't actually have a salary. He was like, how can you not have a salary, Steve? Every job has a salary. That's stupid. And I was like, no, well, technically, I won't have a salary because I'll be, barristers are kind of self-employed, and so I don't know how much I'll earn. He was like, you're telling me you've got the job, and you're telling me you're self-employed, you don't have a salary. He said, that's basic law. How can you get a job if you're self-employed? I should be the barrister. So I came off that phone call, and my contentment dropped a little bit. And then they give you your name, and so here's my name. They don't put it in a case. I did that. And I thought it looked amazing, but then here's the thing. I was walking past it, and a couple of days later, I took my phone out. I thought I'd just take a sneaky photo as I walked past. And as I walked past, I suddenly thought, oh, it's right at the bottom, because it goes from the most senior to the most junior. And so there were like 60 names, and just above the floor was my name. And I thought, I guess it's okay, but I think it would look a little bit better if it was a bit higher up. And I was kind of looking at this thinking, I'm not sure how I feel about my name being like an inch off the pavement. And then I thought, this is extraordinary. For a year, all I've wanted is to be in this board. And within a week, it's not enough. It's not enough for me. And what's crazy is there were 8 people out there who would have given their right arm to trade places with me. And I was already starting to feel a sense of discontent. How deep in the human heart is the disease of dissatisfaction? And it's crazy because so often our disappointment might be someone else's desperate dream. Jesus says people come because they're hungry for more. And their hunger is a hint. He says, you haven't come because of my sign, but because you were satisfied. And what's fascinating is Jesus doesn't spend time criticizing them. He identifies their hunger. He identifies the desire that brought them to him. And then he shows them how it needs to be redirected if they're going to experience true satisfaction. See, it's not a bad thing to feel a hunger. It's not a bad thing to be drawn to Jesus. Maybe because of your need. But the things they're trying to satisfy their hunger with are not going to help them for more than a day or so. They need a different sort of bread, a different kind of fulfillment. They don't need bread that spoils, but they need eternal bread. Not bread from earth, but bread from heaven. We put our trust in things that can't carry the weight of our desires. They were never intended to. You can't satisfy eternal longings with temporary fixes. God has set eternity in your hearts, and your hunger is a hint. But the second thing we see in this passage is you need to direct your desires. See, the solution is not just to stop wanting things. It's not just to stop longing for things. It's not to kind of just hope for less. To reduce your expectations and grit your teeth and plow on. In one sense, your desires aren't too strong, they're too weak. We're far too easily satisfied with passing fulfillment and temporary pleasures. Your discontent is a desire to be harnessed. And they say, well, what must we do to do the work of God? And Jesus says to believe in the one he has sent. And they say, well, what sign will you give us? Moses gave us bread from heaven. And Jesus says, my Father has given bread from heaven. And it's my Father who gives true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is bread which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. And they say, sir, give us this bread. So it's going to be different from what they expect. Because they're expecting a transaction, but Jesus is offering a relationship. They're expecting to receive an object, but Jesus is offering a person. They're longing for eternal satisfaction, but that's going to be found in an eternal relationship. They're expecting the bread of life to be a thing they can receive, where it's a person they have to encounter. And Jesus declares, he announces loudly with passion, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. And whoever believes in me will never go thirsty. I'm the bread of life. That's an extraordinary thing to say. It's an extraordinary thing to say. Jesus could have said, I can give you the bread of life. That would be a remarkable thing for a person to say. He could have said, I can make for you the bread of life. That would have been a bold claim. But to say, I am the bread of life, that is astonishing. That tells you that Jesus is unlike any person who ever walked on the face of the earth. And you must reckon with him. You see, Jesus doesn't just offer to satisfy your desires. He is your satisfaction. He doesn't just give you what you think you need. He is the person who gives you himself. And if you come to him, that longing, that spiritual hunger will be fulfilled. But so often, that hunger takes us in other places. And we look for other things, and we get our loves out of order. I was interviewing the Harvard professor Arthur Brooks on the stage at the Royal Albert Hall. And in the middle of the interview, he said to me, do you want to play a game? And I was like, okay. He said, let's play a game, and we'll work out what your idol is. And I was like, okay. And so he said, I'm going to give you 4 things. So he said, I'm going to give you wealth. I'm going to give you pleasure, I'm going to give you honor, and I'm going to give you power. I was like, okay. And then he said, now give one back to me first. And I said, oh, well, I guess I'd probably give you wealth. He was like, yeah, you're a barrister, you gave it up, it cost you a lot of money, I don't think wealth's your thing. I'll take that back. He said, now give me another one. And I was like, I guess I'll give you pleasure. He said, yeah, you go to gym at 6 a.m, don't think pleasure's your problem. Okay, so now give me another one. And at that moment, I suddenly realized there were thousands of people watching this conversation. And I suddenly felt quite exposed. And I was thinking, well, power, I'm a bit wary of power, but you need some power to do good things in the world. But yeah, I'd probably give you power. So he said, yep, power, great. And then he looked at everyone and said, so Stephen's temptation, Stephen's idol is honor. And everyone cheered. So it was like quite exposing, and I went bright red. And then he said, it's not a bad thing, but you just need to know, because it will mean that you have a tendency to people please. It will mean that you'll have a tendency to work too hard. It will mean that you'll find it hard to say no to other people. So these things aren't bad things, but they're not the best things, and you need to keep them in check. It was so interesting. For the next 2 days, so many people came up to me and they kind of put an arm around their shoulder. Are you okay? That was quite exposing. Do you feel all right? Do you feel vulnerable? I said, I think I feel okay. But it was so interesting. Everyone connected with it, I think. And everyone was slightly kind of open-mouthed watching it, because deep down we know we all have these drivers. And deep down we fear they might be exposed. So it's not a bad thing to have wealth. It's a bad thing if your wealth has you. It's not a bad thing to enjoy life, but it's not a great thing if you make pleasure the ultimate aim in your life. It's not a terrible thing to have power, but you need to know how to hold it with gentleness and not to make that the driving pursuit of your life. It's not a bad thing to want honor, but it is if other people's voices become louder than the voice of your heavenly Father. We all wrestle with these things. They're not bad things, but they were never meant to be ultimate things, and they can't bear the weight of your desires and longings. And here's the thing, when God sets you free from them, then it opens up the possibility that actually you can enjoy these things. Because they're not trying, you're not resting your whole weight in them. They're not trying to hold all your desires. Jesus says here that ultimately the one who meets your needs and fulfills your desires is him. Jesus, he says, those who come to me will never go hungry, and those who believe in me will never thirst. You'll be fulfilled. And I just want to acknowledge today, that might seem like a crazy thing. It might seem like a stretch for you. That a person born 2,000 years ago, 2,000 miles away, in a random corner of the Middle East, who lived a life, yes, of stunning beauty, who died a death on the cross of extraordinary sacrifice, who rose again so you can encounter him today, that person might really satisfy you and fulfill your greatest longings. That in some way he can give you himself so that your deepest desires and hopes are fulfilled. And whether you've been in church 50 years or 50 minutes, that might feel like a bit of a reach. I was thinking about it this week, and I've been following Jesus for a long time now. And I just want to say, as your pastor, there's been times when in my life, I've been tempted to look in other places than Jesus for fulfillment, for achievement, success, people please. And I just want to say, as your pastor, I just want to recognize life is challenging. Maybe like me, you've known loss and sickness. You've known disappointment and failure and regret. Maybe you've experienced some wonderful days. Maybe like me, you've experienced days you wouldn't wish on anyone in the world. Times of great blessing and times when it feels like the sky is falling in and you don't know where to turn. But I tell you, in all of it, in every season, Jesus has sustained me. He's been my portion. He's been my strength and my shield. He's been my comfort. He's given me the security of a status I do not deserve and the significance of a relationship with him I could not earn. He's freed me from fear. He's rescued me from sin. And in any dark valleys, he has been with me. And I have found his claim here to be utterly and completely true. You can have everything the world desires. And without Jesus, you'll always be grasping for more. And everything in your life can be stripped away. But if you have Jesus, then it will feel like you have everything. He is the bread of life. So how do you receive the bread of life? Well, Jesus says those who come to me, and the word here is like those who keep on coming to me. It's a present continuous. Those who are coming to me, those coming to me, those who come daily to me will never grow hungry. It's not a one-time thing. Jesus isn't looking to be your one-off provider, give you a lump sum so you never have to contact him again for the rest of your life. He doesn't want to be your provider. He wants to be in relationship with you. So what does that look like? Well, Jesus talks about daily bread. And I don't know how you find it. I tend to have 3 meals a day. Now, it's unusual these days. I keep meeting people who have 5 meals a day at the gym. And I don't know how they do that. Something to do with protein, but they have 5 meals a day. I can't fit them in. But I also meet people, very strangely, in the last 2 weeks, I've met a number of people who don't have breakfast. And I don't understand that. I find it hard to fast between breakfast and lunch, let alone intermittently fasting between dinner and lunch. And so, but I have 3 meals a day. And if you are going to have 3 meals a day, what would they be? Well, I think you could start with breakfast. You could start with the Bible. Just want to encourage you, feed on this word. Build your life on this book. It's truth when you're surrounded by lies. It's strength when you're weak. It's your shield when you're in danger. It's your sword when you're under attack. It's your light in a dark place. It's your guide when you are lost. It's your hope when you're close to despair. This is God's love letter to you. Feed on it. Make it your daily habit to seek daily bread in his word. You know, we've given away in the last 18 months 686 Bibles to people who are exploring faith. So at least any given Sunday, at least 9 Bibles we've given to 9 people who are going off to read a paper Bible and start to encounter this person of Jesus Christ. You need the Bible. Maybe at lunch, the Lord's Prayer. To pray, our Father who art in heaven. To ask him for what you need. To seek him. He wants to answer your requests. Maybe at dinner you want to devotion. You want to worship. I find I have to listen to worship music in the day. I just put my headphones in at some point, listen to a couple of songs, and if people aren't too close, sing. I find the worship kind of is like my decontamination chamber. It washes off the lies that we just get saturated with day in, day out about where our identity should be and what really matters. Helps me to reorder my priorities. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, Bible, Lord's Prayer, devotion. What would it look like for you? There's 42 days between now and December. What would it look like for you to have 3 meals a day, 3 spiritual meals a day for 42 days? I guarantee you it will transform your life. I have to be a bit careful saying that. I once said that 9 years ago to someone. I said, I guarantee you it will transform his life. After 42 days, he wrote an email to me. He was a very particular guy. He said, you made this promise to me. He said, I've been trying it for 42 days. I would love to let you know that I now feel a greater sense of peace. I feel a sense of purpose, which has increased significantly. I don't worry as much about my life. I feel more content in my day-to-day life. I feel a greater sense of happiness. I actually experience a sense of Jesus being close to me as I go through my life, and my faith has grown. I feel an increase in hope. But looking at it all together, I can't for sure say that my life has completely transformed. And I was like, you're not far off. Give it another 42 days. What would it look like for you to have 3 meals a day for 42 days to December? You know, all food has to be broken before it can be consumed. All food has to be broken before it can give your body nourishment. Has to be broken apart. And Jesus is the bread of life, and he was broken for you. He gave himself for you. And that's why you know that when you come to him, he can nourish you. He can give you what you need. Jesus gave himself for you, and he gives himself to you. And those who come to him, who keep on coming to him, will never grow hungry, and they'll never go thirsty. And this might be a moment for you today just to say, Jesus, would you just help me to reorder my priorities? Would you help me to reorder my desires? Would you help me to focus on you as my hope, as my satisfaction, as my joy, as my peace, as my strength, as my fulfillment, as my contentment? Think of what it would look like as we move around this city and beyond, as we go into our workplaces and hospitals and colleges, walking to a different beat, motivated by a different drive, seeking a different thing, secure in our identity, knowing where our provision comes from, knowing what true contentment looks like. Think of the difference that would make as you lead and work and study. Think of how it would rub off on the cultures and people around you. He's the bread of life. And you can come to him today and ask him for what you need. And he will give you himself. In Jesus' name, amen.